Next, Parenti turns to Venezuela. He recently visited there and attended events with Hugo Chavez. Parenti wrote upon his return, "Good things are happening in Venezuela."
Even before I arrived in Venezuela for a recent visit, I encountered the great class divide that besets that country. On my connecting flight from Miami to Caracas, I found myself seated next to an attractive, exquisitely dressed Venezuelan woman. Judging from her prosperous aspect, I anticipated that she would take the first opportunity to hold forth against President Hugo Chavez. Unfortunately, I was right. Our conversation moved along famously until we got to the political struggle that's going on in Venezuela. "Chavez," she said, she hissed it. "Chavez is terrible, he's a liar, he fools the people, he's ruining the country." She herself owns an upscale women's fashion company with links to prominent firms in the United States. When I asked how Chavez has hurt her business, she said, "Not at all. But many other businesses," she quickly added, "have been irreparably damaged, as has the whole economy." She went on denouncing Chavez in sweeping terms, warning me of the national disaster to come if this demon continued to have his way. Other critics I encountered in Venezuela shared this same mode of attack, weak on specifics but strong on venom, voiced with all the ferocity of those who fear that their birthright, that is their class advantage, was under siege because others below them on the social ladder were now getting a slightly larger slice of the pie. In Venezuela, over 80% of the population lives below the poverty level. Before Chavez, most of the poor had never seen a doctor or a dentist. The neoliberal market adjustments of the 1980s and 90s only made things worse, cutting social spending and eliminating subsidies in consumer goods. Successive administrations did nothing about the rampant corruption and nothing about the growing gap between rich and poor, the worsening malnutrition and desperation. Far from ruining the country, here are some of the good things the Chavez government has accomplished. A land reform program designed to assist small farmers and the landless poor has been instituted. In March 2005, a large landed estate owned by a British beef company was occupied by agrarian workers for farming purposes. Even before Chavez, there was public education in Venezuela from grade level to university, yet many children from poor families never attended school, for they couldn't afford the annual fees. Education is now completely free, right through to university level, causing a dramatic increase in school enrollment. Another factor is the children get to eat lunch at school, which is a good thing for them. The government has set up a marine conservation program and is taking steps to protect the land and fishing rights of indigenous peoples. Special banks now assist small enterprises, worker cooperatives, and farmers. Attempts to further privatize the state-run oil industry, 80% of which is still publicly owned, have been halted, and limits have been placed on foreign capital penetration. Another thing, Chavez kicked out the U.S. military advisors and prohibited overflights by U.S. military aircraft engaged in counterinsurgency in Colombia. Bolivarian circles have been organized through the nation, neighborhood committees designed to activate citizens at the community level to assist in literacy, education, vaccination campaigns, and other public services. The government hires unemployed men on a temporary basis to repair streets and neglected drainage and water systems in poor neighborhoods. Then there's the health program. I visited a dental clinic in Chavez's home state of Barinas. The staff consisted of 4 dentists, 2 of whom were young Venezuelan women. The other 2 were Cuban men who were there on a one-year program. The Venezuelan dentists noted that in earlier times, dentists didn't have enough work. There were millions of people who needed treatment, but care was severely rationed by that most severe of all rationers, rationed by the private market, that is, by one's ability to pay. Dental care was distributed like any other commodity, not to everyone who needed it, but only to those who could afford it. When the free clinic in Barinas first opened, it was flooded with people seeking dental care. No one was turned away. Even opponents of the Chavez government availed themselves of the new free service, temporarily putting aside their political aversions and distaste. Many of the doctors and dentists who work in the barrio clinics, along with some of the clinical supplies and pharmaceuticals, many of them and the supplies come from Cuba. Chavez has also put Venezuelan military doctors and dentists to work in the free clinics. Meanwhile, much of the Venezuelan medical establishment is vehemently opposed to the free clinic program, seeing it as a Cuban communist campaign to undermine medical standards and physicians' earnings. That low-income people are receiving medical and dental care for the first time in their lives does not seem to be a consideration that carries much weight among the more professionally minded doctors.